Once again, if you haven't been keeping up with Ron Sesternino's interviews or reading Dalton Ross's stuff, you probably should. Okay, so how do I feel about this episode? I gotta admit, guys, not a huge fan of it, to be honest. Now, that's not to say that I didn't enjoy it or think it was a good episode. It was, but I just felt like, compared to last week, a lot of the same stuff happened, and now I feel like we're in a little bit of a transition. Now, the ramifications of this episode, I think, are going to be interesting, but I gotta admit, out of the four episodes since Kelly got booted off, this one I think is the least exciting out of all of them. Heck, I'd probably even argue that it's less exciting the episode Kelly went. Alright? I don't really know because like a lot of people mention good things about this episode and just yeah, I think I kind of feel the same way I did about Kagayan episode 11 if you saw that video, right? Okay, so diving into the episode proper, I really cannot remember anything that happened before the reward challenge, to be honest, so I'm not really going to mention anything, okay? And I thought at first that challenge was going to be pretty boring, but what we got was actually pretty amusing in how that blue team just tried like unconventional strategies, desperately trying to get across, whereas the red team just took the time and did what probably would be the on paper strategy, right? And then that bit where all of them were trying to like run those bells across. I mean, like I knew that they were doomed because I was like, Sharon has no chance of making it across. And no sooner did I say that she fell off. Right? Yeah. So red team ended up winning, and then we had that pretty interesting moment where it looked like Dan might be giving up his reward to Rodney, but he got real lucky in that. One, Rodney went, no, man, I'm gonna earn my reward. And then it turns out that Carolyn, although she didn't know about Dan's ace in the hole, was like, yeah, Dan's a bit of a swing voter. We really need to keep him under my wing. Yeah, and it seems like everybody's mentioning Dan as the possibility of being a swing vote. Heck, I even thought that possibility could occur even before he got the double vote thingy. So it's going to be real interesting if he ever ends up using this, and the fact that we still have two idols in here, that's just shocking, isn't it? Yeah. So let's talk about the reward because really nothing was shown there. What was happening at camp was actually far more interesting because out of nowhere, it seems Sierra starts throwing around the idea that the blue collars and or Will or Sharin, should actually turn on against Tyler, and that how he's just sitting there looking pretty and is gonna just like have a clear shot of winning. And up until this episode, Tyler, had actually gotten no votes cast the entire game, which leaves Mike, ironically, as the only person without his name getting written down. Worthy stat to throw out to you there, right? But the main problem I had with that scene was that even though it's good to see people think that, did Sierra really think of that on her own? Like she could, but just I feel like the origins of this came out of nowhere, and it wasn't really brought up in any of the interviews that I heard who honestly came up with the idea, so I kind of wish we had gotten more of that, to be honest, because last episode made Sierra look a little bit more submissive, and for most of this episode, I kind of felt the same thing about her. Now, Sharin did state that, given how she had made it so Will couldn't get his letter, that Sierra had actually gotten to a point where she was in support of her over Will, and that Sharin actually somewhat liked Sierra, but she seemed to kind of contradict herself in her interview, so let's hope we get a little bit more from her in the next couple of episodes. Right, and then ironically, Rodney appears to be somewhat willing to go along with it, but then he states, hey, I'm the guy who's going to be sitting back and deciding how this game goes. Not really, dude. You keep claiming justifiably so, because you really did come up with this idea of your own mini alliance in the blue plus white collar plus will alliance, but just I haven't seen you really trying to do anything with this kind of thing. I mean, like Tyler, Caroline, Mike, and screw it, Dan have or will make more of an impact than you will in this situation. Sheesh, bro. I mean, like, this episode made me like him a little bit less than I have in the previous episodes. Now, I know that a lot of you are going to be shrieking at me, well, why are you liking him in the first place? Well, it is possible, to find semi-redeeming qualities, or qualities that you somewhat enjoy, and people that you don't really like, And, like, screw it, I'm a Boston Rob fan, alright? Even though I hated him in more cases, trust me, I really did. When he got voted out, unlike HVV, I didn't just go, oh man, that sucks. When he got voted out, I did this. Finally! Literally, that's what I did! He was stupid in there. But, like, Boston Rob, he's an arrogant guy, absolutely, okay? And yet I find his control of the game, especially All-Stars, very interesting to watch. Although the producers really did give him too many chances to win in this game. I mean, like, seriously, had HVV been his last appearance, even us Rob fans probably wouldn't be complaining that much, because even though his exit, was bad. One, HVV was such a good season to most people, and two, a member of his alliance did end up winning, even though ironically that's not what I really wanted, but you guys get the idea, huh? Just, yeah. And another thing, if anyone out there is really going to be complaining about anybody that is left or is like on the jury is getting like arrogant or negative moments, pretty much everybody that made the merge has gotten like arrogant or negative moments at this point, okay? And if you don't watch Big Brother, well, if you watch that show, you're going to see people getting negative stuff happening to them left and right, and then you forget about it later in the season, okay? So, yeah, but it does go to show that this is more like Big Brother, Okay, so now I've completely lost my train of thought. So yeah, I was talking about the possibility of blindsiding a tie. Alright. And then we got a few more random interactions between members of the tribe, Mike and Sharon, trying to see if there's like any way they can like squirm anything and to like keep them alive, right? And then we get that immunity challenge, and having two necklaces. Yeah, I'm kind of with Steven out there, and that it did seem like the producers were trying to throw a lifeline to Mike and Sharon in this situation, because it's almost exactly like the situation in Caramon, where they put an extra hidden immunity idol that should not have been there, and that was able to save the three amigos. Now, this is a little bit different, because several times in the history of the show, they have done where there were two necklaces available in an individual immunity challenge, one to the leading member of either gender, okay? But here's the thing, they have always, and I really do mean always, done this as the very first individual challenge. So, having it be down the line, now to be fair, okay, there was 8 people left in the game, and that's one member less than what they did in All-Stars, where there was only 9 people, okay, but they're breaking form, and it really did seem like they were trying to save Mike and Sharon there. Now, Mike winning, I think almost every one of us could have seen that coming, okay? He wasn't getting, like, the edit to, well, he really needed to win this immunity. We all knew he needed to win immunity, but I think that we all probably would have predicted that he would have won anyway, and even if he had lost, he would have just whipped out the idol. He was staying. We all knew this. So him winning, not a big deal at all. But Sharon ended up losing to Caroline, so even though it did look like they were trying to throw them a bone, the fact that it didn't happen, I think we can for the most part let this go. But if they do it again, gonna have to keep my eye on this one, because even though Survivor has broken the norm or with big, long-standing trends, such as, going from Final 2 to Final 3, tweaking the hidden immunity idol, and how it's played, introducing it with Exile Island for its first several appearances, but then taking Exile Island out of the equation. This doesn't really feel like one they can do. Now, conceivably they could, but we have to wait and see. And hypothetical. Would Carolyn have beaten Mike? My honest reaction is no, but I do think she would have beat Rodney. But of course we have no clue if they really did indeed show everyone in order. You'd have to rewatch the challenge 3 different times in order to really figure it out, and I don't really think it's worth all that stuff, Right. Okay. So then, due to the fact that Mike's got immunity, everyone's just planning to vote now to Shirin to, give Mike to not have an ally anymore, but also to finish the original task of voting everyone who was in the no-collar block. So then Mike does really what he needs to do and goes up to Dan and then asks him as his previously best friend of the game, as a blue collar, and then even though he doesn't know it, the advantage, and goes, help me out here, bro. For what we once had, let's flip the script. Let's get rid of Ty, who's a huge threat here. And obviously, Shirin tried to do that, even though she, in her interview, said that she doesn't really like Dan, even though I do think Dan was listening, but he ended up just deciding to do what he did. It was his decision alone in this situation. I don't think he was swayed by anybody at the end. You can argue that Mike's actions at Tribal did propel him to go one way or another, but it just didn't feel like he made his decision based on somebody else. He just took it all in and decided, you know what? Yeah. Anything else to mention before Tribal? Not really, to be honest. If any of you guys can think of anything, just ask me and I'll tell you about it. So then at Tribal, Mike pulling the idol, well, it does kind of somewhat make sense because he does still have some influence over this group. He hasn't convinced anyone to flip, but given, how much all of these people talk and such, stuff can really be produced because of his actions. And even if it doesn't totally work out in his favor, if he still manages to change the outcome of the game to what it was after he would have been eliminated, it's still technically a win because Shirin, she regarded what happened in this episode as technically as a win, even though she got voted out, because the plot has been somewhat stirred here. Now, obviously, it might not happen because, as I stated a few episodes back, right when the merge started, the precedent, or precedent here, whatever word it is that even though these blue-collar people keep yelling at each other, they always keep voting together, and they kind of have been for a long while now, even though Mike's been pushed away, so will it happen again? I don't know. But it was interesting to see everybody try and start considering their fate in the game, and then Dan's comments of trying to equivalent domestic violence to being adopted. It doesn't work like that, Dan, okay? And adoption doesn't necessarily mean that you're in a bad spot, okay? Because, I had a couple of friends over the course of my middle and high school years that I learned were although I didn't have the greatest social interaction with them, and they didn't tell me, they told somebody else, and I just happened to hear them. So, yeah. It's not the same thing, okay? Yeah. Whew. But I gotta admit, even though, let's talk about the Tyler and Carolyn thingy here. Sure, it's a good move by Mike to put some heat on Tyler and such, and Dan is correct in saying that the people who are at the bottom will say anything. That is true, but I gotta admit, you know how many people were originally wary of a big blue-collar block? Well, why hasn't anyone thought about those two? Heck, even back when Joe, Dan, Mike, and Sierra voted out Joaquin, they weren't really thinking of Tyler going back over to Kellen, although they weren't thinking of Joe going over to the no-callers. Yeah, I don't totally understand what the deal with that is. And we're never going to really know all of it because these blue-collar people have gotten so far in the game that totally new things are going to be worthy of being discussed here. Yeah. Oh, and how do I feel about Will's comment to Shirin going, if I apologize to her, I want it to be sincere. Now, at first, that does look like it's a nice answer, because, like, I haven't told, to apologize to somebody after I hurt them, but in my mind, I'm thinking, I don't actually feel sorry for them right now. I more often than not feel anger towards them, so I can't really go out to them and say sorry, because it's not how I feel. I have to wait a long time before the sorrow or guilt really comes forth. So you could argue that that's what he's thinking, but Shirin revealed that these two have actually been butting heads ever since the swap/dissolve, so yeah, I don't think any real apology is coming out of Will at this point. He was more trying to deflect the question. Right. So at the end of Shirin going, I did kind of expect that, especially since Mike didn't play the idol for her, and like, even though it's the right decision for his game, in my mind, given the type of relationship you have with Shirin, you don't stand up and say, I'm going to give this to you, and then, sorry girl, a few minutes later, just... Yeah, that's not the kind of thing I do. I'm amazed that she actually is still in support of Mike after that. I mean, like, sure, there could have been a little bit more to that we didn't see, but, yeah. So Shirin goes in actually a pretty positive atmosphere because, that smile on her face, it never actually left her. She says that she has no hard feelings to Mike, at least, and it does seem like she has no hard feelings towards Sierra. Everybody else, well, we're going to have to wait and see. So now that it's just the majority alliance left, even though Mike is now in a tough spot, what's going to happen? Well, any number of possibilities could happen. Here, all these people are willing to play the game, and 6 out of 7 have been highlighted as being responsible for the game being shook up the way it has. Anything could happen. This is the group that I wanted to see get far, and it's going to be very interesting to sit back and see what happens now that Rob Sesternino has lost his bet. Yeah, that's just so ironic because Rob and Steven, they ended up voting for opposite sides. Steven's like, I'm supporting blue. Rob was like, I'm supporting red, and it looked like he was going to be right after Kelly left, but then all 4 of the members of the no-collar tribe goes 1, 2, 3, 4. Rob, yeah. I mean, like, I know how it does feel to be rooting for the wrong side. Trust me, I've been there, but it's just kind of amusing just how stuff like this keeps happening this season, yeah. And then, how do I feel about Rodney doing what he's done? But what? Dude, I mean, like, I thought what you had done previously in the season was crazy, but formulating this idea, vote me out. Oh, please, no one is gonna vote you out just because you say so, okay? You gotta pull a Jatia on them if you really want them to vote you out that deep in the game, please. Seriously, man. And another thing, he does realize that he's potentially only 1 episode away from the family visit? Huh, dude, you're that close. Because I've looked up when the finale for this season is, and we've got 2 episodes, and the finale is guaranteed now. Later.